She did it again. She actually did it again. Claressa Shields, undisputed middleweight champion of the world, one of the greatest women boxers to ever lace up a pair of gloves, just walked out of her Atlanta training camp and posted a caption to the entire internet calling Papoose, a man who is still legally, on paper, in a courthouse in the state of New York, married to Remy, her hubby. Not her boyfriend, not her partner, not her man, her hubby. And I need you to sit with what that word actually means for a second, because everybody's going to look at this and think it is just another Claressa post, just another day of the same girl saying wild stuff on social media. And I am here to tell you that is exactly the wrong way to read this. And it is the reason nobody has actually connected what is happening right now. Because there are two stories running in parallel on your timeline this week, and the one you have been watching is not the real one. The real one is what August 15th is starting to look like behind the curtain at State Farm Arena. The real one is what those training camp clips are quietly revealing about a team that keeps calling itself a dream team, while the head trainer is looking at a stopwatch instead of his fighter. And when we get to the ticket situation and the sponsor situation later in this video, and I promise you we are getting there, you are going to understand why the hubby caption was never a slip of the tongue. It was a distress signal. This is not a woman flexing a relationship. This is a woman whose fight card, whose brand, whose entire public image is buckling under a weight she chose to pick up. And the caption is the sound of the buckle. Everything you think you have been watching about Claressa and Pap has been framed around the wrong question. The question is not whether she is delusional. The question is why she cannot afford to stop. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and subscribe. Let's get into it. Let me set the table properly, because a lot of you are just tuning into this saga, and you deserve the full picture, not the TikTok clip version. Claressa Shields, at this point in her career in 2026, is a two-time Olympic gold medalist, an undisputed champion in multiple weight classes, and by any objective measure, one of the most accomplished American boxers, man or woman, of her entire generation. On August 15th, this coming Saturday, she is fighting Kaye at State Farm Arena in Atlanta for the WBC and WBA Unified Middleweight World Championship. And it is being streamed on DAZN. And that is a huge stage, and it should be the biggest week of her professional life. That is the surface story. Under the surface, though, is a story that is much messier, much more human, and honestly much more sad. Because for the last year and a half, Claressa has been publicly involved with Papoose, born Shamil Mackey, a Brooklyn rapper who is best known to the mainstream world as a husband of Remy, the Bronx MC and Love and hip-hop cast member, and who filed for divorce from Remy back in May of 2025 with a whole laundry list of allegations about the marriage. That filing, and this is the entire crux of what we are about to unpack, is not a divorce. A filing is a piece of paper you drop off at a clerk's window. A divorce is a signed order from a judge dissolving a marriage. And as of this week, in the middle of July 2026, more than a year after that filing was made public, that signed order still does not exist. Papoose is still legally married to Remy. That is not opinion. That is the current status of a public court proceeding. And into that legal reality, Claressa Shields keeps stepping into her Instagram and her X account and posting the word hubby and the tattoo and the Dream Team hashtags and the baby announcements. Because yes, she is now on record saying they are trying for a child in 2027, and the internet keeps handing it back to her, and she keeps escalating. And the fight is a week away, and something has to give. The stakes here are not gossip stakes. Musically, culturally, financially, they are enormous. Musically and culturally. Because a whole hip-hop generation grew up on Papoose and Remy as a love story, and watching one half of that story publicly rebrand herself as somebody else's wife-in-waiting is doing damage to a piece of a culture people were emotionally invested in. Financially, because you cannot separate what a fighter posts on Monday from what her sponsors decide on Tuesday. And reputationally, because Claressa Shields, one of the best boxers this country has ever produced, is at this moment being talked about more for a caption than for a title defense. 1 week out from the biggest arena of her career. That is the tension. So the question the whole rest of this video answers is simple. Is this a woman who is truly in love and does not care what the world thinks? Or is this a woman using rage-bait engagement to prop up a fight week that is not selling itself the way it should be? Because those two answers lead to very different places, and only one of them ends with her career intact. Let us walk through what is actually verifiable, on the record, sitting on your feed right now, before anybody gets to accuse me of speculating. Piece of evidence number 1. On her X account, on the training camp clip that everybody has been passing around this week, Claressa Shields wrote, and this is a direct quote from her caption, All I do is train hard, then go home, and my hubby Papoose. Hubby. Publicly. Attached to a man whose divorce, according to reporting from outlets like the Shadow League and iHeart and Boxing Scene going back to May of 2025, is still not finalized. That is not a private text message somebody screenshotted. That is her main account, her verified handle, tagging him. In front of every sponsor, every promoter, every commissioner, and every fan who is being asked to pay upwards of $73 for a standard ticket at State Farm Arena. And I want you to picture the marketing meeting that had to happen after that post went up, because there was one. There is always one. Piece of evidence number 2. The training camp clip itself. Head trainer John David Jackson, former middleweight, former world champion, a legitimate boxing mind, is standing there with a phone in his hand acting as the timekeeper on the drill. His fighter, one of the greatest of her generation, is a week out from a unified title fight, and the man being paid to watch her technique is looking at a screen counting down 30 seconds so he can call break. And in the background, arms folded, standing there like a man waiting for his wife to come out of the fitting room at a mall, is Papoose. Doing nothing. Not holding the bag. Not holding the phone. Not holding a water bottle. Just standing. And the caption on that clip is Dream Team. Dream Team. I have been around enough real training camps to tell you what a dream team looks like. And it does not look like your head coach doing the job that should be assigned to the least important person in the gym while the boyfriend leans against a wall. That is not a dream team. That is a photo op in a boxing gym. Piece of evidence number 3. The pool clip. Claressa is in the water working, doing legitimate conditioning cardio, and Papoose is sitting on the edge of the pool in his socks. Socks. At the pool. Nobody who is planning to get in a pool is wearing socks, which means the entire choreography of that visual was designed for him to be present without ever actually participating. He is not her training partner. He is not her strength coach. He is not her physical therapist. He is a presence, and the presence is the entire content. And I know exactly what some of you are about to say. You are about to say the same thing as fans always say, which is that he is emotional support, and he is there for her. And that is what a good partner does. And I hear you, I really do. But I want you to explain to me why that emotional support has to be filmed. Why does every session of it require a camera and a caption? Piece of evidence number 4. And this one is the receipt. Claressa Shields has, on multiple platforms in the past few months alone, gone back and forth with commenters who point out the marriage status of the man she is calling her husband. She has responded to people spelling names wrong. She has called people bald-headed. She has posted about her Facebook creator check, which reported publicly at around $4,000 to $5,000, and she has waded into direct arguments with fans while ostensibly being a week out from a world title unification. And every single one of those arguments plays right into the algorithm. Because outrage is engagement, and engagement is money, and money is what the surface story is really about, whether anybody is willing to say it out loud. And oh, do I have more. Because if you thought the surface layer was rough, wait until you see what the inside of a culture is saying. The stands really are not going to like this next part, but the receipts are the receipts. And there is a very specific piece of insider evidence coming up about how other fighters in her own weight class are quietly positioning around this fight week that is going to change how you read the whole story. Stay with me. Cultural evidence layer. Piece 1. Remy Ma. This is where the story stops being funny and starts being uncomfortable, because Remy Ma has not been playing the victim in public, and she has not been dragging Claressa in public either, which is arguably more devastating than if she had. Remy Ma has been living her life. She has been performing. She has been on floats at parades in New York alongside Fat Joe. She has been in the studio. She has been photographed at Rick Ross concerts with their son. She has been giving interviews about her own projects. And every one of those images and clips is a piece of cultural evidence that lands harder than any diss Claressa could ever throw. Because the message the culture receives is that the person still legally attached to the man Claressa is calling her husband is thriving in public without ever having to say Claressa's name. That is a specific kind of loss that no amount of hubby captions can undo. Piece 2. Alicia Baumgardner. Now, Claressa and Alicia have their own long-standing history in the ring and outside of it, and Claressa has publicly issued an apology to Alicia, along with Netflix and MVP, over a viral incident earlier this year that some of you saw covered on YouTube in real time. That apology alone is a piece of evidence, because when you have to write a public apology to another fighter, to a streaming platform, and to a promotion in the same paragraph, you are not in a strong PR position going into fight week. Meanwhile, Alicia Baumgartner has since been announced as a cast member on the reality show Special Forces on Fox. And whatever your feelings about that show, that is a mainstream television check that has nothing to do with getting punched in the face. And it is the kind of look Claressa's team should be chasing at this stage of her career and does not appear to be landing. Piece 3. Amanda Serrano. Amanda has a new fight announced. Amanda continues to be positioned as a face of the sport across streaming platforms. Amanda does not spend her weeks arguing with commenters about her partner. Amanda has, whether Claressa wants to admit it or not, become the reference point for what a female boxing superstar looks like when the marketing is clean, and the story around her is the fight, not the caption. Piece 4. Layla Ali. Layla has a book coming out. Layla has a business selling spices. Layla has a garden. Layla has, at this point in her post-boxing life, become an example of what an athlete of that caliber looks like when the brand is being managed like an investment portfolio instead of like a group chat. And when you line these 4 cultural checkpoints up next to each other, Remy thriving without engaging, Alicia landing mainstream television, Amanda getting the next big fight, Layla operating like a mogul, what you are looking at is not just a chorus of unrelated success stories. You are looking at a cultural pattern. Every woman that Claressa has, at one time or another, publicly beefed with or been positioned against is, in July 2026, in a better public position than she is. Now, I want to be fair here, because I do not want anybody accusing me of ignoring the counter-argument. Someone's going to say Claressa is the champion. Claressa is still the one holding the belts. Claressa is still the one headlining the show at State Farm Arena on August 15th. And all of that is true. I am not disputing any of it. But being the champion inside the ring and being the winner of the fight week narrative are 2 completely different fights. And Claressa is currently 1-0 in the ring and losing on all 3 scorecards on the internet. And I want you to sit with that for a second, because that is where we have to shift gears. Because everything I have just walked you through is entertainment layer. It is culture layer. It is the layer where people fight about captions and post memes and pick sides. But that is not what this video is really about. This video is about the layer underneath the entertainment layer. The layer nobody in the reaction space is actually breaking down, because breaking it down requires you to talk about a part of the business that most fans do not want to hear about. Get ready, because we are going somewhere different now. Stop. Rewind everything I just said, because I have been telling you the story the way the algorithm wants you to see it. And now we're going to look at the story the way the industry sees it. Because the real reason Claressa Shields is out here posting hubby captions and getting into fights with commenters on a Tuesday afternoon a week before a title unification is not personal. It is structural. And once you see the structure, you cannot unsee it. Systemic angle number 1. The women's boxing pay structure. This is the part nobody wants to talk about, but we have to. Women's boxing in 2026, even at the very top of the sport, even at the Claressa Shields, Amanda Serrano, Katie Taylor tier, does not pay what men's boxing pays at anywhere close to the same level of accomplishment. A male undisputed champion in a major weight class is a 9-figure human being. A female undisputed champion at that same tier is fighting for a fraction of that, sometimes an order of magnitude less, depending on the card, the promoter, the streaming deal, and the sponsor stack. What that means, in real practical terms, is that for a woman like Claressa Shields, the fight purse is only part of the compensation model. The rest of the compensation model has to come from somewhere else. And in 2026, that somewhere else is social media revenue, brand partnerships, appearance fees, and creator platform checks. And the moment your compensation model shifts from the fight to the feed, your incentive structure shifts too. Every argument in the comments is engagement. Every hubby caption is engagement. Every controversial post is a Facebook creator check and a meta bonus payment and a boost in algorithmic reach that translates directly into future partnership opportunities. Now hold that thought and let me stack the next angle on top of it. Systemic angle number 2. Ticket sales versus promotional obligation. State Farm Arena in Atlanta seats around 17,000 for boxing configurations, and any promoter putting a card there needs a story that will move actual butts into actual seats. Publicly available seat maps this week for the August 15 card are showing wide availability across multiple sections, and the standard row 8 tickets are being listed at around $73, which is not a premium championship fight price point in the modern boxing market. That is not a rumor. That is what the ticket brokers are showing you right now if you go look. Which means the promotional team behind this fight has one job in the final week, and that job is to move tickets. And how do you move tickets in 2026 when your headliner is a technically brilliant fighter whose most recent viral moments are not about her boxing? You lean on the noise. You lean on the drama. You lean on the caption cycle. Because every time Claressa shields trends for calling somebody else's husband her hubby, the fight trends adjacent to it, and every casual sports fan who now knows the fight is happening on August 15th is a potential ticket buyer or a potential DAZN subscriber. So when you ask why is she doing this a week out from the biggest night of her career, the honest structural answer is because doing this is part of the promotion, whether Claressa consciously understands it that way or not. Systemic angle number 3. The Papoose economy. And this is the one that is going to make some people uncomfortable, but it has to be said. Papoose, as a solo rap artist in July 2026, is not a headliner. He is not on a major label tour. He is not selling out arenas. He is not on the top of a streaming chart. The most consistent public bookings for him over the past couple of years have not been arena stages. They have been podcast appearances, hip-hop media rounds, and now increasingly this training camp adjacent content with Claressa. Which means, from a pure business perspective, Papoose has more to gain economically from being visible on Claressa Shields' platform than Claressa Shields has to gain from being visible on his. His audience is small, and hers, thanks to the algorithm cycle we just talked about, has been growing every time one of these controversies pops off. So the Hubby Posts, the training camp cameos, the pool socks, the arms crossed in the background, the concert appearances, all of it, they are not just relationship content. They are a professional collaboration, whether the two of them would ever call it that on camera or not. And when you overlay all 3 angles at once, the women's boxing compensation gap, the ticket sale pressure on the promotion, and the Papoose visibility economy, what you are actually looking at is not a love story. You are looking at a 3-way business ecosystem in which the personal relationship, the fight promotion, and the rapper's public profile are all feeding off the same engagement loop. And the fuel powering that loop is Claressa Shields' willingness to be dragged in the comments for content she posts about a marriage that is not hers. That is the real machine. That is what nobody in the reaction space is naming out loud. Because naming it means admitting that the caption everybody laughed at this week is not the punchline of the story. It is the product. Now here is the truth bomb, and I want you to pay very close attention because this is where every layer we have just walked through, the surface layer, the cultural layer, the industry layer, collapses into one single conclusion. And it is the conclusion Claressa Shields herself, allegedly and reportedly based on her own recent interviews on the Pivot podcast and on Hot 107.9 Atlanta, does not seem to fully understand yet. The truth is this. Claressa Shields is not being torn down by her fans. Claressa Shields is not being torn down by Remy. Claressa Shields is not being torn down by the boxing press. Claressa Shields is being torn down by the exact same content strategy that is currently keeping her financially afloat between fight nights. That is the trap. That is the whole trap in one sentence. Because everything that is making her a bag right now on Facebook and Instagram and X, the hubby captions, the baby announcements now pushed to 2027, the shots at Remy, the responses to commenters, the tattoo, the dream team hashtags, is the same content that is quietly making her unsponsorable to the tier of national brands she should be signing with at this stage of her career. Think about the brands she should be in bed with right now. Nike, Under Armour, Adidas, Gatorade, State Farm, given she is literally fighting in their arena. Samsung, Beats, Target. Every one of those brands has a compliance department, and every one of those compliance departments right now is looking at her feed and asking one question, which is whether the reputational exposure of putting our logo next to her name is worth the reach we would get from her platform. And every time she posts hubby about a legally married man, that answer moves one notch further toward no. That is not speculation. That is how brand deals work in 2026. That is how they have always worked. Athletes lose 7-figure endorsement deals over one comment section every single year in this industry. And this is where the sadness of the situation, and I'm going to be honest with you here, actually settles in, because we are watching a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, a woman who has done more inside the ring than 99% of the fighters of her era, allegedly, based on her own reported statements, planning a family and a future with a man whose divorce is still not signed, and doing it in a way that is bleeding the exact kind of respectability, capital she would need to convert her boxing accomplishments into the 10 and 20-year post-career payday that fighters like Layla Ali built for themselves. And the reveal, the actual reveal, the thing I need everybody watching this video to understand before we move on, is that this is not going to correct itself with one good performance on August 15th. Even if she knocks Kaye out in the first round, Even if she gives the greatest performance of her career, the search results for her name for the next year will not be dominated by the knockout. They will be dominated by the caption. That is what she has traded, whether she knew she was trading it or not. And that is the trade she's going to have to live with unless something changes in her camp between now and the next fight after this one. The consequences are not abstract. They are dollar figures. They are logo placements. They are television commercials she will never be in. They are Netflix documentary opportunities that will go to another fighter. And they are all, every last one of them, downstream of the same content decisions being made right now in the training camp we watched this week. But here's the part that keeps me hopeful. And I want to leave you with this, because I do not do these videos to just tear people down and walk out of the room. I do them because I actually care about the sport and I actually care about the culture. And there is a version of this story where the right person still wins in the end. And I want to walk you through what that looks like. The right person in this story, from a boxing purity standpoint, is the discipline. Not a specific human being, the discipline. Because the discipline is what puts Amanda Serrano into her next fight, without a single scandal attached to it. The discipline is what turns Layla Ali into a garden business and a book deal and a public speaking career 20 years after her last fight. The discipline is what allowed Remy, whatever anybody thinks about her personal life, to keep showing up on floats and on stages and next to Fat Joe and Rick Ross without engaging in a public war with her husband's new partner even once. That is the through line of every winner in this story. And it is a through line Claressa Shields is still, at this moment, fully capable of stepping into if the people around her can convince her that the caption is not worth the cost. Because here is what I actually believe. I believe Claressa Shields, at her best, when the phone is down and the gloves are on and John David Jackson is actually watching her instead of holding a stopwatch, is one of the most technically gifted middleweights of her generation. Full stop. I believe that on August 15th at State Farm Arena in Atlanta, if she gives us that fighter, the world is going to remember why she has the belt she has. And I believe that even after all of the noise of the last 18 months, there is still time, if she decides she wants to close the caption chapter. Let the courthouse do what the courthouse does on its own timeline, and go back to being the boxer we all first fell in love with watching in the Olympic arena. One person makes headlines for a hubby caption. The other person makes history for a hook. And in the long run, in the 10-year archive of the sport, only one of those two things gets remembered. So even in the middle of all of this mess, even in the middle of the ticket questions and the sponsor questions and the divorce that is still not signed and the boyfriend in socks by the pool, the door is still open for the version of this story where Claressa Shields walks out of Atlanta on August 16th with her hand raised, with a knockout on the reel, and with a new chapter starting the very next Monday morning. The evidence for that version of her is still on tape. The Olympic footage is still there. The world title wins are still there. The technical brilliance is still there. All of it is still on the ledger. And that is what I want everybody who has watched this all the way through to hold on to. Because if you're still here at this point in the video, you already know that I do these breakdowns because I want the truth to land and I want the culture to correct itself. This story can still end well. It just needs the person at the center of it to make a different choice about what she posts on the Monday after the fight. And that is exactly why the next chapter of the saga is going to be one of the most important weeks of Claressa Shields' entire career. And it is why I need every single one of you subscribed right now with notifications on. Because two things are about to happen in the next 30 days, and I'm going to be covering both of them in detail on this channel. Number one, the actual August 15th fight card at State Farm Arena is going to be a live fire test of every single thing we just talked about. The ticket movement in the final 48 hours, the sponsor logos that do or do not show up on her walkout gear, the DAZN promotional push, the crowd size, the post-fight interview, and yes, whether Papoose is standing next to her in the ring after the final bell. All of it is data. And I am going to be breaking down that data the second the fight is over. And number two, the divorce timeline. Because eventually, and I do mean eventually, a judge in the state of New York is going to sign a piece of paper. And the moment that paper is signed, the entire framing of everything we just walked through changes. And either Claressa's caption strategy gets retroactively vindicated or her caption strategy gets retroactively exposed. And I am going to be right here on this channel the day that happens breaking down exactly what it means. Both of those stories are coming. And neither of them is going to be told honestly on the platforms that have a financial incentive to keep the drama going. So if you have made it to this point in the video, thank you. You are incredible. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, drop your take in the comments. Is Claressa playing chess or is Claressa self-destructing on live TV? And let me know what you think. And before you go, the next video I am dropping is one you cannot miss, because there is a name that keeps showing up in the background of every single one of these training camp clips, a name that most fans have not even started asking questions about yet. And when I show you the connection between that name, the Papoose management situation, and the sponsor stack that keeps not showing up on Claressa's fight card, you are going to understand that everything we just talked about today is only the surface. The real story is the one nobody has connected yet, and that is the video I am dropping next. Hit subscribe. Do not miss it. We unpacked